I'm speaking to Juliano Mer-Khamis, the director of the widely acclaimed movie Arna's Children, a film about his mother and the Palestinian children his mother worked with in a theater she created in Jenin during the first Intifada, and what happened to those children as young men during the second Intifada. Juliano Mer-Khamis will be speaking in Manhattan on Tuesday, October 17th, 7 p.m. at the Pioneer Theater on 155 East 3rd Street after a showing of the film. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Your mother was an Israeli soldier in 1948, but within a few years became a communist and married an Israeli Palestinian. What so disillusioned her about Israel?
Well, actually, she was participating in the fighting of she was one of the, they call it the special forces of the Palmach in 48, the Jewish brigade who fought for the creation of the Israeli state, and they have been promised to fight for a land for two peoples, so two nations living together in harmony, peace, and equality. But on the ground, she faced different things, and the breaking point was when she took part in the Plan D, what's so called. It's the ethnic cleansing of the Bedouins, the Arabs from the south side of Palestine, those days, Israel today. She was also the driver of one of the most radical right-wing officers in the Israeli army those days, Havam Ze'ev Gandhi, who was assassinated by the Popular Front for the liberation of Palestine.
Was he a big right-winger in those days too?
Yes, yes. He was one of the main thinkers behind the Plan D for expelling the Arabs from Palestine in 48. Her sister participated in a massacre in Lod as an ambulance driver for the Jewish brigade, and she told my mother the story when she was back at home, and this was the breaking point. My mother took off her uniforms and left the Jewish brigade, the Palmach, Special Forces, and she joined some kind of groups who were dealing with dialogue with Palestinians. They called it Hashomer HaTzair. It's a Jewish Zionist left groups. There she met my father in one of those dialogue groups, Ali Fatima. He was a communist in the Communist Palestinian Party, and then later in the Israeli Communist Party. They married. She was thrown out of her house. She was boycotted by her family because of this marriage. She was thrown out and from the Rosh Pina settlement where she was born, a Jewish settlement, one of the first settlements in the Galilee. She was boycotted by the Jewish society. She was prohibited from teaching in the Israeli schools. She was a teacher in her profession. So she went to live with my father in Nazareth, and in Nazareth in those days, we are talking about the 50s, there was a military regime, and naturally she joined the Palestinians in the struggle against the military regime, which was imposed on the Palestinians inside Israel after creating the Israeli state. She goes to jail, and my father goes to jail for years, and then the rest is history. She becomes one of the most activists in the struggle for the liberation of Palestine and against the Israeli occupation in Lebanon and then in the West Bank and Gaza.
Why during the first Intifada did she create the Care and Learning Center in Jenin?
During her struggle against the occupation inside Israel and among the Israeli society, she had a lot of phone calls and requests from friends in Palestine for help and assistance. She was a very known educational personality, and during those days all schools were shut down, curfews were imposed, the whole educational official system collapsed, and people were asking for help, and she went there and started workshops on the streets. She just bought papers and wrote brushes and pencils and started to work with the kids in the created, I would say, a net of centers which were an alternative education system to the system which was actually shut down.
She went on to win the Right Livelihood Award and used the money to make a children's theater in Jenin. Were you the camera operator at this time?
Yes, I joined my mother during the 90s. She asked me to join her. I'm an actor in my profession, and she asked me to help her with the kids in psychodrama, creative drama, and she started to receive some donations and grants, and she opened in every neighborhood a small center which children could practice music, psychodrama, drawing, studying, and slowly, you had almost in every neighborhood in Jenin such a center. And then she received the Alternative Nobel Prize. We got some money, and we built the theater together, and I was directing. But during all those days, I was shooting the kids. My hobby was a camera.
Was it film or video?
It was a video.
Mm-hmm.
All the time, just a video. And I was making small films, to send abroad to get money for the project. It was not really intended to be a film at the end. There was only a certain point when I decided that I'm going to make a film, and I applied for grants for the film, and the film was meant to be about her as a person, as a person who barriers the conflict and the transmission and the transformation from the Palmach, from the Jewish Brigade, to Jenin. But unfortunately, the day I got the money, the day the doctors told me that my mother has only 1 year to live, she was ill, very ill with cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And then the film became about her illness and about her struggle to live and to survive her own physical situation. I became very close, and I'm her son at the end, and I lost any distance between me and her, and I had to stop filming and shut down the whole project. I came back to this project 5, 6 years later, when I was watching a TV and saw one of my kids from the children lying dead in Hadera in Israel after committing a suicide attack.
Mm-hmm. The Yusuf.
Yusuf, yes. And I had the last phone call from Yusuf was 2 weeks before that, and I called my producer. I said, I must know what happened. How come Yusuf? He was one of the most talented and good-looking and amazing boy. How come he ends? Shake me. How come he ends as a suicide attacker in Israel? And I bought a camera. I had my producer behind me, and I went to Jenin. I stuck in Jenin for 8 months because was during the big invasion, the defensive shield operation of the Israelis. I could not get out. Lucky me, I found most of the boys still alive, and they were organized in groups, and I joined one of the groups, which were the Kataib al-Aqsa Brigade. I lived with them, filming them all the time. Unfortunately, many of them died in front of my camera. But I ended up with their story and some kind of understanding what happened to those children between the years they left the theater and to the day they found their death in the conflict.
Now, the film includes you talking with the fighters, talking about the Israeli soldiers they shot, later shows them making booby traps, shooting at tanks. Weren't they concerned the film could fall into the hands of Israeli security?
Well, during the whole period of shooting, I was in a direct connection with the leaders of the organization, and every time we were discussing which scenes I can use, which I have to destroy or to hide, and so during the days of the shooting and then during the editing, I was in a direct connection with the organization, and every time I had material that I thought that it might be endangering somebody, I was going back to meet them, asking them for permission, or either we have to cover somebody's face or things like that. And also during the editing, when I was in Amsterdam, the material was smuggled out from Israel. This is, I can say it today, could not say it before. And but unfortunately, at the end, I must tell you a very sad thing. When I finished to edit the film, and the last version was ready to go online, to go out, to be released, I went to the camp for last meeting to see if there's something I had to take out. And unfortunately, I found out that it was only 2 months which I was not in contact with the camp. And during these 2 months, I'm talking about 2003, I discovered that all the characters in the film who have anything to do with resistance or struggle or weapons were already dead. And the only one who is alive from this film is Zachariah's baby, who is today leading the Intifada Brigade. And he, anyway, chased, and they trying to execute him and assassinate him 3 times a week, so he cannot be endangered by this film. So unfortunately, there's nobody to danger anymore.
What about on the other end? Weren't you concerned that you'd be accused by the Israeli government of aiding the enemy?
Well, I must be honest with you. I was a little bit disappointed. I was really ready. I had my lawyers, my affidavits, my wills, and everything was set. Bank accounts. I spoke to my children, but at the end, they behaved the opposite from what had been expected from me. They tried to hug me. I call it the kiss of death.
Mm-hmm.
And they tried to force me to cooperate with them and to use their help to promote the film. And at a certain point, even I was invited by the Israeli ambassador in America, in New York. And well, he was enough honest to tell me the truth behind this behavior when I asked him. So he says, look, at the end, this proves our democracy. So it's in our interest. And second, Juliano, don't forget, your mother was Jewish. And it shows the other face of the Jewish nation or the Israeli nation. And so at the end, so Israel is very clever in its propaganda and the way it creates its image. And today we are recreating this theater in the Jenin refugee camp called the Freedom Theater. And I invite your audience to visit our website, which is www.thefreedomtheater.org in Jenin refugee camp. And we have a lot of Jews from the United States which are visiting today. Daddy Weber and Vicky, Romilly, and a lot of friends who are trying to set up a kind of association of friends of the Freedom Theater, supporting us, helping us to reconstruct or rebuild a very big cultural center in the camp. And I must tell you, the Israelis not helping us in a direct way, but the areas we are moving in are protected, are not hit by helicopters or by shells. When we have guests in the camp, suddenly all jeeps and tanks disappeared. And in a way, I believe that they are clever enough to use us for their own benefit. And we, of course, use them, using us for our benefit.
In the film, we briefly see Zachariah Zubaydah, who's now the leader of Al-Aqsa Brigade. In 2004, an Israeli woman named Ali Fatima, on her own, went to Jenin and met with him, and was then given some heavy jail time. I was told she was inspired to do this after seeing your film. Is there any truth to that story?
Yes, Ali Fatima called me, and she asked me if I can join her to rebuild the theater. I was outside of the country. I said this is a great initiative, and I'll be helpful as much as I can. But she must be very careful because she doesn't have this background. I'm at least half Arab, half Palestinian, so if I'll be killed while they're trying to assassinate somebody in the camp, it's not so tragic for them. But I told her, they don't like Jewish people to be moving between their legs when they are killing people there, and I'm sure they're gonna target you or get you out or jail you. She said, I'm not afraid, I want to go, and as I'm telling you literally, she took a taxi and went to Jenin, and everybody was very surprised how come she was not slaughtered, because she's a Jew. And the whole Israeli media was really surprised how come the Palestinians did not slaughter this Jewish woman who comes without protection, without any kind of political background. Nobody knew her, nobody saw her ever in any demonstration, even she was out of politics for many years. She comes from a very right-wing family, by the way. She goes to Jenin, she meets with Zakaria, she offers her help, and the second day the whole army goes inside with megaphones and dogs and bursts into the houses, arresting her, and she goes back, and she's been warned, and she goes again, and she goes again. At the end she ends up in jail for 3 years. I spoke to her 3 days ago. They refused to release her after good behavior, you know, when you have...
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there had been a campaign for her and a website, and then everything seemed to disappear.
It's not disappeared. She has another 2 months, and we hope that she will be out. You know, you cannot drag. She's not the only one. There is 9,900 Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails. So you cannot campaign all the time for one.
But she hasn't been broken.
No, not at all. Not at all. She's not been broken. She's been consistently rejecting her. She's the one who is rejecting this campaign around her. She says, it's not about me. They are killing people. They are assassinating people without trial. It's not about me. Do for them. Act for those people in Palestine. Leave me. I'm not the issue here. But she's very important because I think she leads today, you know, the borders or the lines of your struggle is the fear from jail, especially in Israel. This is, I would say, the framework that people work in, and she broke it. She broke this mythological fear of jail in the eyes of people, and she encourages a lot of people, and this is why it was very important for us to bring this her story or her case into the public arena and the media.
Good. I have just a couple more questions. I understand Arna's Children has won a number of awards.
Yes, lucky us, we won the Tribeca Film Festival, first press documentary. In Canada, Hot Dog, first place. In Czechoslovakia, Human Rights Film Festival, first place. In Holland, we won the what's so-called Holland Oscar for best documentary.
How has the film been received by Israeli Jews?
At the beginning, I could not release the film in Israel. Nobody wanted to screen it, and all journalists who tried to write about the film or TV, people who tried to make reportage about the film, they were not allowed, and many of them could not go over the editors. But at a certain point, we succeed to find some very important critic, Uri Klein, who wrote a very good article, a very encouraging one, and this is legitimate, gave it legitimacy to one screening in Tel Aviv, and you know, after this screening, we say in Hebrew, the walls did not fall. So Haifa Cinematheque made another screening, and slowly by slowly, they realized that the film is not so anti-Semite as every criticism about Israel has been ended up titled by being anti-Semite. And this is a film not against the Jewish people. This is a film which shows the authentic story of children under circumstances that can be in Palestine or in Bosnia. So the film at the end was accepted very, I would say, in a very interesting way, because it also was on the ground that, you know, the Israelis, they know the truth. Almost every second Israeli was in the West Bank as a soldier or as a father of a soldier. hidden. They know the truth. And but once they confront it, this is uncomfortable for them. And I would say that the film creates a very strange reaction. People, I was after the film, we were trying to create Q&A, question and answer, and nobody was answering. Nothing. There was a silence after the film, and at the end, even the Israeli TV approached me to speak, but they conditioned me to take Yusuf stories out of the film. I said, how can you take the main story of the film? By the way, I had also a request from the Syrian TV, and they asked to take my mother's story out of the film.
Wow. Wow.
I told myself, maybe I'll do a 10-minute clip for this.
My final question is your personal direction now in directing or in acting?
I decided to leave the Israeli stage and to move to live in Jenin refugee camp, to build a new theater, and even more than that, a small cultural center. And lucky me, I had it was a good timing. I had a lot of friends who were supporting us during the film, and I got to a stage that I could not anymore entertain the Israeli society as an actor. I think the Israelis are they are beyond the the red line of any kind of dialogue, at least from my perspective. The society is becoming very racist, it loses all restrictions. What is happening today in Palestine is a crime against humanity in all sorts of levels. And to be part of it, either active or passive, is something that I could not anymore handle. So I decided to leave the Israeli stage, to leave any connection with Israeli society, and to move to live in Jenin refugee camp and try to put my energy and my knowledge and my experience for the children in Palestine instead for the society who is destroying Palestine.
Thank you very much for this interview.